We welcome Professor Jeffrey Sachs. He is the director of the Center for Sustainable Development at Columbia University. Jeffrey, great to see you.
Thank you very much. Good to be with you.
Jeffrey, in his first year of the second term, President Trump has pursued a very aggressive foreign policy. In fact, I think it might be more apt to call it a war policy rather than a foreign policy, but it has included attacks on sovereign nations, the arming of an ally, Israel, which is committing what a UN panel says is a genocide in Gaza. There have been threats against sovereign territory belonging to allies. We saw the seizure of a foreign leader, Nicolas Maduro, the seizure of oil tankers as well. President Trump says this is all about United States national security. How do you see it?
Nothing that has been done has improved U.S. national security, that's for sure. We are less secure today than we were certainly when Trump's second term began. And in fact, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists just unveiled the updated doomsday clock, which measures worldwide insecurity. They moved the second hand of the clock 4 seconds towards midnight, saying that we are now, as a world, only 85 seconds to nuclear Armageddon, essentially. They said the world has become a lot more dangerous during the past year. I think we have to say that this is the case. The United States bombed 7 countries by one reliable count. Trump threatens countries every day. He's threatening a war, a renewed, expanded war in the Middle East with what could be imminently an attack on Iran, since there's a major carrier task force that Trump is boasting is there to attack Iran. There still is lawlessness in the U.S. approach in Venezuela, a military naval quarantine against all international rules. And I think we should add the fact that the Trump administration pulled out of 31 UN organizations. Trump is making a direct assault on the UN Charter and on the UN-based system, basically to say, we'll do what we want. The only thing that constrains me is my mind, he said, my own morality. This is an extraordinarily dangerous position. It's a delusional one when any leader or any country says, we're not bound by international law, we're not bound by the UN Charter. So this does not make America more secure in any way. It makes it less secure, but sadly, it makes the whole world less secure.
That threat against Iran, it intensified this week with the president saying that time is running out for Iran unless there is a nuclear deal. And by nuclear deal, he means that Iran cannot be involved in any kind of nuclear program whatsoever. It has to give up its entire nuclear program. Part of that deal, according to media reports in the United States, is also that Iran restricts the range of its missiles, and that range must fall well short of Israel. With all these conditions being placed on Iran, what is there to negotiate?
I don't think that Iran will accept these conditions, and that could lead to war, and the war would be a disaster, obviously, for Iran, but I think for the whole region and possibly for the whole world. So this is very alarming. Who does Mr. Trump think he is, that he can make every demand he wants on any part of the world? Well, that's the behavior right now, but it is not conducive to solutions or to peace. What's happened in Iran, as his own Treasury Secretary basically chortled with delight last week, is that the U.S. has been using what they call maximal pressure to destroy the Iranian economy. And this is rather shocking. In other words, the U.S. has been at war with Iran, but using economic and financial means mostly, not military means primarily, though the United States, of course, did bomb Iran last June, and the CIA and Mossad together commit assassinations and other forms of violence inside Iran. But I doubt that the Iranians are going to surrender to Emperor Donald, but we'll see.
If, Jeffrey, there is an attack on Iran, what are the broader implications for the region?
Iran is a major country, obviously. It is not a world great power, but it is a regional power. It's 90 million people. It has hypersonic missiles. It has important allies in the region and internationally. It is not a pushover. It's not Venezuela in America's backyard. It's in a completely explosive region of the world. And so if Trump starts an attack on Iran, it could easily spread to a regional war.
And turning to Venezuela, what do you think was the point of that attack on Venezuela and seizing the president, Nicolas Maduro? And before that, of course, the United States had been carrying out a campaign of attacks on boats off the coastline of Venezuela, alleging that these boats were shipping drugs to the United States. No evidence was provided of that. But Maduro is now in a U.S. prison, so is his wife, but his entire government remains in place. So what was the point of it all?
The United States government, the deep state, the CIA in particular, has been trying to overthrow left-wing government in Venezuela at least back to 2002. In 2002, there was a coup attempt against the then president, Maduro's predecessor, Hugo Chavez. It took him out of office for one day. The CIA and the U.S. government expressed delight, but Chavez was powerful enough to claw his way back to power after having been subjected to this attempted coup, and he then continued his presidency. Since then, and especially after Venezuela confirmed massive oil reserves, and the United States government confirmed the scale of those reserves from 2007 onward, the U.S. in one way or another has been itching to capture those reserves, to overthrow the government, to get its leading companies, especially ExxonMobil, together with Chevron, into Venezuela and earning a lot of money. So throughout the 2010s, there was, again, a maximum pressure campaign. There was an attempted color revolution, in my view, in 2014 in Venezuela. By that, I mean the United States brought people out onto the streets. It didn't work. In 2017, Trump put the squeeze on financially, trying to basically break the Venezuelan state oil company. He succeeded to a significant extent in crushing the production of Venezuela. That put the economy into startling collapse between 2016 and 2020, perhaps a decline of as much as 60 to 70% in per capita income, something you would almost never see in a peacetime economy. It led to mass refugees. Trump at one point, what should have been seen as an absurdity, but what was taken seriously by all the U.S. vassal states around the world, declared a different president in Venezuela, Juan Guaido, who was a legislator. And Washington just came up with the idea, we'll call him president. We'll confiscate Venezuela's reserves. We'll give the reserves to Mr. Guaido. It's a comic book approach, but they tried it. It ended up fizzling out. But it shows that the war against Venezuela, the attempt to overthrow a left of center, left wing government has been underway for nearly a quarter century now. And Trump pulled the trigger and kidnapped a president and purports to run the country now, something I don't think is true. But we're still in the midst of a violent U.S. regime change operation.
You know, all that we are talking about right now was the dominant topic of conversation at that world gathering in Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum. That's a gathering of the ultra-wealthy corporate leaders, political leaders, journalists as well. Sometimes they're all the same people. But one of the speeches at this year's Davos gathering was one made by the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, in which he talked of the fact that the world is now in the midst of what he called a rupture. That was a break in the way the global order used to run. The old order that was in place since World War II is now over. Do you see the world in some kind of a transition right now? Are we at some kind of inflection point? And how will the United States respond to that? I mean, it's not going to just give up its dominant position very easily, is it?
We are definitely in a broad historical transformation from a Western-dominated world, which lasted about 250 years, in which the European imperial powers in the 18th and 19th century and the United States in the second half of the 20th century purported to run the show for the whole world. And that world is over because we've already reached multipolarity. China is a superpower. It is an economic superpower. Russia is a superpower. India is becoming a superpower. So we're already in a multipolar world. Not in Donald Trump's head, though. In Donald Trump's head and in the machinations and intentions of the CIA and the U.S. deep state, they're intent on keeping control. They can't, but they're intent on it. And so there's a collision with reality that is playing out in different regions of the world. In Latin America, where more and more countries have China as the main trading partner. In the Middle East, where we have turmoil to an important extent also created by the U.S. ally, by Israel. And in Asia, where, of course, most Asian countries, say in Southeast Asia, have China as the principal trading partner, but the United States is still with military bases all around the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea and the East China Sea, and it still claims to control the so-called first island chain, which is a rather obnoxious concept that goes back to 1951, where the United States says we will deny China access to the Blue Ocean. Rather extraordinary hubris, an extraordinary idea that the United States should say whether China has access to the Pacific Ocean. But this is what is underway. So yes, there's a lot of drama. There's a lot of danger. There are a lot of views in Washington that I regard as delusional, delusions of continuing grandeur. And the United States is basically at war with the UN system, because the UN system is a legal system. It's a structure of rules. And the United States doesn't want to be constrained by any rules now, especially as it's flailing around trying to keep its power. Also, Trump is, of course, insanely jealous, especially of Russia, I would say, of its vast Arctic land and access to the Arctic Ocean. And so Trump is even openly claiming Canada as the 51st state, or Greenland as part of the United States. This has a lot to do with Trump's jealousy of the scale of Russia and the fact that Russia strategically has a geographic dominance in the Arctic region, not the United States. And so all of this leads to instability. If we had a normal, stable president and a rational government, we would be working to create a world in which all parts of the world can have their prosperity, in which there can be security, in which there can be arms control, in which actually we would be pushing the doomsday clock away from midnight, not towards midnight. But we don't have that kind of rational government right now.
Jeffrey, in the little time we have left, just about a minute, I want to talk about the future of NATO. And there are many who are saying that that future is now threatened by Trump's desire to acquire Greenland.
Basically, Europe should have its own foreign policy. If Europe were smart, which it's not in its foreign policy, it would be the first to seek diplomacy with Russia and with China, and not to be so Russophobic that they try to crawl back into the lap of the United States, which does not have Europe's best interests at heart. So Europe should get its act together. They don't really need NATO. They need diplomacy. They need peace and collective security with Russia. They need peace and trade with China. They, of course, need some military, but they're not about to be attacked if they would go to normal diplomacy. And in that way, Europe would find it's probably more threatened by the United States right now than it is by Russia if it could just take a very rational view of the current situation.
Jeffrey Sachs, thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you.